There is a popular belief that what doesn't accelerate divorce is our time at work. But because we're stuck at home due to mandatory quarantine, there will be a surge in divorces. Romantic relationships tend to be the shortest when people are young, and extramarital sex increases as age also increases. Depending on the study, the number of cheating can range from 1 in 5 to almost 1 in 2. The rate of suicide is significantly higher than those in the past, and one of the contributing factors to this increase is our mental health problems, which may stem from our sense of loneliness and helplessness. Many of us who are from the younger generation living in the modern day also feel lonely and abandoned as we don't have any close relationships. It is clear that even though the economy may be booming, our mental health isn't improving. Hence, we may view these problems as something akin to an inescapable aspect of life in the modern age, which we can do nothing about. Ancient thinkers like Confucius would disagree with us and claim that they are indeed something that we can surely work on, albeit slowly. We yearn for a good relationship with those whom we hold dear, and we rightly do so, as a 75-year-long Harvard study of human development tells us that they are what makes our lives healthier and happier, both physically and mentally. Hence, to cultivate such close relationships, Confucius advised that we should consider performing rituals. Ritual is a word with negative connotations in the modern Western world that often invoke a sense of anachronism, irrational, lame, or unbefitting. Yet, he argues that it is one of the most important things that we can do as human beings, not just to better ourselves, but also to be better with those who are around us the most. On a day like Valentine's Day, it is the perfect time to improve ourselves, not just with the opposite gender that we are attracted to, but also with our friends and family. So in this video, we will investigate what rituals are in a Confucian sense, the significance of rituals and why we should perform them, and the concrete steps that we can take to better our relationships with our loved ones, or to heal any wounds that we may have inflicted upon them, whether intentionally or unintentionally. The origins of rituals is unclear, as some say they may have evolved from religious activities to become part of our everyday lives, morphing into secular activities like holidays, weddings, funerals, and graduation ceremonies. With rituals, the medium itself is the message, as the events or actions involved communicate something important to those who understand their significance. The uniqueness of Confucian philosophy as opposed to the West is that instead of approaching the issue of how to live a good life from big questions, he starts by examining your life on a daily basis. People from the West also have this misconception that Chinese people have lived in a rigid structure that dictated how they ought to live and confined them to a particular social role since ancient times. Along those lines of thinking, Confucius would be the paragon of this rigid social structure that does not belong in any liberal modern civilizations. But the truth is that he, along with many other Chinese philosophers that we have covered in this channel, saw the world to consist of an endless series of fragmented and complicated encounters. This view emerges from the idea that all aspects of human life are governed by emotions and are very complicated, with many variables and factors. Because of this observation, they came to the conclusion that all living things have dispositions or tendencies to respond to things in a certain way, and life consists of moments influenced by our previous experience and emotions. Our repeated responses in these moments accumulate and develop into a pattern habit, whether we do it consciously or not. But these habits that we develop in our lifetime can be refined and changed, not by controlling our emotions and reacting on instincts, but rather through deliberate cultivation of our emotions so that we can internalize them to better ourselves. The nature that emerged from the decree from the 4th century BCE, written by unknown Confucian philosopher, discusses this Psychology 101 research in one of its passages. Only through training do we become able to respond well. At the beginning of our lives, one responds through emotions. At the end, one responds through proprietary. For Confucius, we do this refining through Li, a ritual, or a habit-building curriculum. When we're going through rituals, we're in the world of possibilities that is patently distinct from the real world. Imagine living in a family that is always bickering and trying to one-up each other. When we go and visit our parents' grave on their annual anniversary of passing away, we would put aside our differences and try to get along as much as we can in front of our deceased parents. This annual ritual would end once we leave the cemetery and we will go back to our usual selves. But when the next year's anniversary comes, the family members will be at peace again. The ritual does not tell anyone how to behave in the real world, but what it does is, it allows a break with reality which allows the participants to begin to work on their relationships. Accordingly, if we do this repeatedly and as frequently as we do, then gradually it is possible to apply the environment from the ritual to the real world. The same thing happens when we go to a therapist's office. We take a break from the cruel world that does not allow us to be ourselves and go into a new reality, a defectual ritual space that allows us to be a new person who can say things that would not be possible in the outside world. The interactions between therapist and patient allow us to construct a different way of relating ourselves to other people and develop ourselves, which we then apply to the outside world. Both people in the rituals are consciously aware of their actions during the rituals and deliberately work on it and keep doing it in different sessions until eventually construct a different and far better self. All of this would not be possible, however, without goodness. Thus, it is important to understand what it is. The way a Confucian sees goodness isn't abstract like the way a Western philosopher sees it. For Confucius, it is the ability to respond well to others and to draw out their own better sides. Therefore, one of the hallmarks of Confucian goodness from the Western goodness is the lack of a single broad definition. For the Western philosopher, their definition does not leave any room for ambiguities. Take the famous trolley problem, for example. They will argue that adding in details like whether one of the people that you will be running over by the trolley are your family members or a pregnant woman. They exclaim that doing so would allow emotions to cloud the ethical judgment when you make your decision. For Confucius, formulating abstract universal laws to guide us is not only irrelevant because we interact with our emotions on a daily basis, but also dangerous since it prevents us from learning how to navigate through complexities of situations. Thinking about a broad moral imperative obstructs our understanding of how to express goodness, since we inhibit ourselves from evaluating the whole situation. Accordingly, he instead suggested that we must let intuition, experience, and wisdom guide us in all these different shifting situations to understand what it means to be good, and we can develop our sense of goodness through rituals. Through rituals, we can help prevent the tendency for our relationships to continue automatically to apathy and disengagement. The rituals that we do with our loved ones can promote the happiness and longevity of the relationship by deepening intimacy, romance, friendship, commitment, and stability. Commonplace activity can evolve into a ritual when you realize it's taking on more significance in your lives. You might even discover that your morning coffee together has become a meaningful way to start your day, or your occasional walks in the parks have transformed into an indispensable time to connect and talk. If everything that we have covered sounds like Confucius was advocating for what is essentially a modern habit-building program, then it is because it is. After years of self-reflection and the observation of those around led him to the same conclusion that modern-day psychologists have come to, which is that our patterned behaviors and automatic habits are what dictate our lives to get in the way of looking out for other people, especially those whom we hold dear. Through a life spent doing the rituals that break down the patterns and rebuild new habits, then we gain the ability to sense how to be good with people around us. Being able to change our habits that define a large part of our life and identity also help us recognize that other people are also malleable despite what we may feel. But this feeling comes from the idea that we often hear about, which is to be ourselves. But it is a mistaken one nonetheless, since we are always changing in one form or another. So with this awareness, we can sympathize with others who we may have understood, and by better ourselves with those around us, it can have a snowball effect where more and more people better themselves, opening up a constellation of possibilities with not only those who we will be parting ways one day, but also with the systems and policies in place which affects each and every one of us. So now that we know better that rituals are not something to be avoided and stigmatized, but something that can be a good complementary in our lives, what are some suggestions that Confucius made 2500 years ago that we can use even in modern day? With whoever you wish to connect with, sit down together and make a list of all the rituals you share, whether they're daily ones or anniversary. You can discuss what you like about these rituals, how they make you feel, and how they are serving in enhancing your relationships like fostering trust, building intimacy, and helping manage conflict. Then review events and activities that you would like to ritualize. Are there any rituals you would like to change, enhance, or drop? Make a list of these scenarios that have the potential for becoming a ritual. If you're living with someone else and the chores or tasks that you have to do are boring or causing stress in the relationship, then think of ways you can work together and create a fun ritual that turns them into something that can foster closeness and teamwork. For example, if you're in the habit of saying I love you to your loved ones platonically or not, but you don't feel the emotional weight when you say those words, then it is something you can ritualize so that you can break from reality and enter a space where it is as though you do love or care about each other fully and at every moment. If you don't have many rituals in your relationship, then spend some time together brainstorming ideas. Write them down and choose one ritual, either immediately or a bit later. If there is a new one or the usual activity that you want to ritualize, add into your schedules. Carefully choose a ritual that either fits into your schedule or add a useful or a needed benefit to your lives, or both. To establish this ritual as a habit, you should probably choose one that you can do daily or at least several days a week. Then plan out a specific rituals and work on planning this ritual together. If the ritual is new, then attach a trigger as a reminder to perform it. You may also want to review the ritual to see if there is some adjustment that needs to be made, because there could be some reason that could be making you fail to perform the rituals. By fully present and engage in whatever ritual you are trying to establish as a habit to avoid making the rituals, be fully present and engage in whatever ritual you're trying to establish as a habit to avoid making the rituals lose their meaning by them becoming rote. Performing rituals is to improve a person, and if that something has become route, then you will also lose interest in whatever you initially set out to do, which will result in stagnation with our current reality. Accordingly, only add a few more rituals at a time as you refine and solidify your first ritual. If the purpose of the ritual is to replace the other unwarranted habit with a new one, then note your habitual behaviors and work actively to shift them. Remember the goodness that you desire, and remind yourself by setting triggers to go through the rituals that will allow different sides of you to emerge. Rituals can be used as a tool to better yourself or the relationships that you want to work on. They can still be performed with your loved ones, even if you and them are thousands of miles away. You must not give up, because over time, you will internalize a more constructive way of acting in the world, instead of being led by your undisciplined emotional reactions. Harvard professor and philosopher Michael Puey reminds us that as we conduct our rituals and gain a sense of goodness, we become the very opposite of rigid. Not only do rituals help us prevent from becoming stuck in any one role, but also training ourselves in rituals means learning where and how to create or alter them. These ordinary rituals are the means by which we imagine new realities and over time construct new worlds. Our lives begin in everyday and stay in everyday. Only in the everyday can we begin to create truly great worlds.